When I started this journey, I thought it would be a fun challenge to inhabit an RV and explore the wasteland as a nomad, but my desire to find a place to settle down somewhere and even rebuild civilization within a world overrun by zombies became my ultimate goal. This video is a condensed, re-edited, and enhanced version of my complete nomadic series. Watch as I overcome many challenges, goals, and create friendships, witness loss, and push myself to lay claim over this wasteland. So, with all this being said, let's begin with Chapter 1. Typically in Project Zomboid, the first house you spawn in is abandoned in minutes. You loot everything the house has to offer, and then you set off on your adventure. But what if you never left? Instead, you took your home wherever you went. All the essentials you need on a set of wheels. Well, I put this to the test. For the next 7 in-game days, I would attempt living out of this very RV. I wouldn't be allowed to settle anywhere else nor drive any other car. And not to mention, but every town and every road is infested with countless unpredictable zombies. This challenge was very hard and made significantly more difficult because if I died in game, then that was it. I was dead. Plus, my RV is capable of taking damage with every time I prove to be a horrible driver. So, with all that being said, let's begin with day 1 of this challenge. Now, admittedly, this goal would not come without its downsides. Having to depend on a single vehicle as your only break from the zombies outside meant that I would have to take extreme care of this RV. So, as for my traits, I loaded up on anything that I thought could help me with vehicles. Beyond the RV Nomad trait, which would give me an RV to inhabit in the first place, amateur mechanics was essential, and I filled out the rest of my traits with both some generally useful abilities and some tools to help me along the way. And with all that sorted, it was time to begin my journey. My first moment laying sight on my RV was a bittersweet feeling. Knowing that this would be my home for the next 7 days piqued both my curiosity and my concern. As I entered the snug confines of the cabin itself, I found myself suddenly appreciating the small things that it was comprised of. Oh, look at my little home. I have a little home inside my RV. This would be the only sense of safety I had for the next week of my life. And though it seemed compact and at times constricting, it did uphold some sense of homely charm. However, while I'd like to have spent more time taking the sights in, I didn't have time to waste. I quickly took stock of my belongings and headed on my way. Although, what I wasn't aware of at this point in time was that I had spawned between both towns on the map, namely 𝐷𝐷𝐷 and West Point. But since I hadn't yet gotten my bearings, my only guide to the next destination was the open road. So I started driving to the south with hopes of finding somewhere to loot, and after a few moments, my search was rewarded with a dirt road. Fortunately, this road did lead to a warehouse, a great place to start looting for this run. I quickly broke through a window close to my parking space and snuck in, taking out a single zombie in my way, and I was pleasantly surprised by what lied within. So much food in here, dude. Oh, dude, I am literally never gonna eat food again. This was a great find. Without somewhere to settle down and farm or forage, this food could be the difference between life and death on the road. So I quickly completed a couple trips between the warehouse and my RV to secure any food I could find. After clearing out the warehouse, I continued down the dirt road until I came across a nearby construction site. This place would be a little bit more active with a few zombies to clear out before I could do a looting run. However, I managed to quickly take care of my company before looking around. I was fortunate enough to find a couple key tools and a nail gun, and while this might not seem like much, it was at least a weapon with which I could defend myself from more trouble. So I ventured further along the road and continued to loot some of the nearby houses. While I found a couple useful items, I had to be quite conservative. One huge issue with living out of this RV was that the space was extremely limited. While I might be able to find plenty of valuable items that would be useful down the line, I couldn't afford to store bulk goods without reason. Every space and spot was as essential as the last. I heard some noise outside near my RV as I looted the last few boxes and ducked out of the garage to find that I had begun to draw a little bit of attention to myself. Oh boy, this is a little close for comfort. This horde of zombies would be too much for me to take on in my current state. I also spotted one of the zombies hauling around a backpack. This could be a very important part of equipment that would help keep me alive on my travels. So I carefully attracted the horde in my direction to pick them off one by one, with my goal being to obtain the backpack and then make a run for it. But this had proved to be harder than I had imagined. Oh my god. Game, run, run, run. Oh my god. After some close calls and a nail gun barrage, I managed to grab the backpack from the zombie corpse and make a run for it. With the backpack slung over my shoulders, I quickly jumped into my home on wheels and headed out. Unfortunately, this would become a familiar pattern in my journey to survive on the road. Nothing would come easy without the ability to truly settle down somewhere. I took a moment to appreciate the comfort of the RV. If these pale cream walls could talk, I could only imagine they were cheering me on, willing me forward towards the next day, and the next after that. I parked the RV at a nearby house and scrambled together a salad bowl from the fresh food I had scavenged at the warehouse. This wouldn't be the most hearty of meals, but it would do for now. And with that, I lay down to rest in the preparation for day 2. This would certainly not be the biggest challenge I'd face in the days to come. With the initial adjustments to the life in the RV out of the way, I started day 2 with a newfound sense of appreciation for the little things, the comfort that a normal life brings. I loaded a TV from a nearby house along with some extra refreshments, and then installed it into my RV. Now, from the safety of my mobile home, I could enjoy helpful broadcasts that would give me additional levels in cooking, carpentry, fishing, and more. It was a small, refreshing break from the outside world, but the knowledge it brought could be extremely useful in the days to come. The main issue I had to address was, of course, the lack of space. After all, without a proper house to settle down in, I was limited on what I could fit inside my RV, so I'd be forced to expand the storage inside my RV to get through the next week with enough supplies. So I'd have to keep developing my carpentry level until I was able to safely obtain some extra containers. In the meantime, I had to set myself some smaller goals, the first of which was to make my way out of the town I was currently in. I had a goal to drive towards the nearby town of West Point, and while I didn't anticipate any of the troubles that could arise along the way, one thing I was extremely wary of was the amount of zombies starting to litter on the streets of the town I was traveling through. I don't want to crash, man. I don't want to crash. I'm slowly just gonna hurt my engine. This was a bad idea. This was a really bad idea. Oh my god, they just keep coming in the roads, man. Go away. Get out of the road. Stop running in front of my car. Oh, there's so many. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Come on, come on, come on, come on. We gotta get out of this town. We gotta get out of here. Unfortunately, the hordes had started to build, and if the amount of zombies lurking around wasn't enough, occasionally I'd run into a sprinter zombie hiding within the hordes. And if you know anything about Zomboid, all it takes is one sprinter to up your entire day, literally. As a result of this, it would become extremely hard to leave my RV and safely loot any town or building, since the hordes would quickly overwhelm me. And on top of all that, with each zombie I ran over or bumped into, meaning the more I hit, the more likely my engine would stall or just, well, never start up again. And we can't have that. All of that together meant that caution was the most important factor of every encounter on day 2. I had to be wary with every single road I drove down, and trust me, you'll see exactly what I mean. So, in order to reduce the potential damage to my humble abode and its sole inhabitant, I quickly left the town and started to head towards the outskirts of West Point along the bridge. So, with my first goal of the day in sights, I directed my attention to a secondary problem at hand. I needed to get my hands on a gun. And badly. The simple fact of the matter was that in Zomboid, any wrong move could be my last, and having the necessary firepower to escape any guaranteed death would mean, well, I wouldn't die. Fortunately, I knew there was a gun store nearby that I could attempt to loot. However, the only problem was that the gun store was completely sealed off and barricaded. That left me with 2 options. First, I could craft and use a Molotov to burn down the wall for me to enter and climb through, or I could get my hands on a sledgehammer to destroy a wall or barricade of my choice, allowing me to stroll right in worry-free. And since it was going to be a death sentence to loot any of the nearby bars for alcohol required to craft myself a Molotov, I decided to just drive down any nearby road in hopes of finding one of those procedural generated sledgehammer spawns instead. And to my surprise, I got pretty lucky. A sledgehammer. Alright, that's perfect. That's exactly what I need. I just need to grab that if I can. Okay, just get these zombies away from here. I can do this. Oh my god, get out of the way. Okay, I just gotta bring these zombies away. Then we can loop back around and grab that sledgehammer. At first, the zombies surrounding it presented a certain challenge. However, with my RV, I was able to lure them away and loop back around so that I could safely loot the sledgehammer. With the sledgehammer attained, things were looking up, and I could only return to my search for guns with one obstacle out of the way. So I started to trek back into town. However, no journey comes without its challenges, and my RV hood health was beginning to get dangerously low. This would make my engine far more susceptible to breaking down, which, given the terms of my challenge, would mean game over. So on my way into town, I stopped at a nearby bridge and found a nearly pristine truck that was so kind to lend me its hood as a replacement for my own. Yes, this is a good hood. Please don't break it. Damn it. Chances, oh, it's a 50-50. Okay. Nice. We got it. Okay. Now let's put this on my van. Here we go. Install hood 82%. Stop breaking it. Oh no, it's getting even lower. How am I this unlucky on a 50-50 chance, man? There we go. Okay, 68% health on this hood. All right, we're good. That's good, that's good. With the hood fixed, I was in a much better situation, protecting my RV from any more unwanted damage. And with all that pressing issues accounted for, I finally made my approach to the gun store. The gun store had its fair share of zombies on my return, but I was able to lure them away with my RV once again without taking too much damage to my shiny new hood. This took up most of the hours left in the day, but as day 2 came to a close, I managed to lure away the majority of zombies using my RV, before going to sleep with the goal of looting the gun store in the morning. With 2 days out of the way, I hope that day 3 would start to equip me a little better for the days to come, but only time would tell. Day 3 started with new beginnings. I cleared out any stragglers in front of the gun store that had wandered over during the night and started my looting run. I finally laid my hands on some real firepower, with my first find being a shotgun with ammo. This would prove to be an extremely important weapon against the undead I came across for the remainder of the week. I did find some other assorted guns, but I wasn't able to find any ammo for the most of them, meaning for the time being they were pretty much useless. But I, however, did pick them up anyways just in case I came across some ammo down the line. However, this would take up some valuable space in the RV, but it was worth the sacrifice. With the gun store finally cleared out, I took my RV out of town into a safe area in the woods. This short break from the zombie-littered streets provided me with a moment to reflect on what I'd accomplished so far and what was yet to come. I mentioned previously that the storage would become a significant problem for me, and in order to address this, I would need to develop my carpentry skill, so this way I could pick up storage containers to install into my RV without them breaking. Now that I had some time to plan my next move, I quickly realized that I wouldn't be able to make much progress in my carpentry abilities without a skill book. In Project Zomboid, each skill in the game has a corresponding book that you can read to give yourself an experience boost. Sort of like in real life, I guess. You research and study something, but you can't gain experience until you perform the physical task. With that in mind, my only option to develop my carpentry skill and other important skills like metalworking and mechanics would unfortunately be to obtain their matching skill books. With my plan laid out in front of me, I abandoned this peaceful silence of the forest and headed back into town. I knew the location of a nearby bookstore and quickly made my way there, clearing out some of the zombies in my way to scavenge for the carpentry book I was after. While I didn't find the exact book I needed, I did manage to obtain some other skill books that would help me in some other departments for this 7-day challenge, such as metalworking, electrical, and most importantly, mechanics. It was unfortunate not to find the carpentry book I was after, but I would have to resort to other means for leveling up the skill. I didn't let this discourage me though. While I was in town, I looted the dentist office next door for medical supplies. Bourbon, I'll take that, why not? Oh yeah, this is what I'm looking for. All these medical things gonna be really helpful. I don't need sleeping tablets because I'm not gonna really be sleeping much. So I'm just gonna grab all these useful things and any other essential item that I would need in case of an emergency. Also, I managed to find an additional container in the trunk of a broken down car that I could install into my RV for more storage space. This was a temporary fix for the lack of carpentry knowledge and would delay the issue of storage for a short while. Finally, I made my way to some office buildings for a final loot run of the day and found most important resources of all, cigarettes. Cigarettes. Perfect, okay. While this won't sustain my needs for hunger, thirst, or survival, it would be a significant means of catharsis for the constant depression and internal struggles that I would face in the cold, dark world around me. With one more problem dealt with, and my mood on a high after the release of my emotional burdens, I used the final moments of day 3 to reorganize my RV. A well-sorted container can mean the difference between a happy home and my inner demons corrupting my pure soul into a black void of OCD-fueled madness. Yes. Also, I made a veggie stew. I settled my mind in some skill books that I had looted from the bookshop. By reading these, I would give myself a nice experience boost in mechanics, metalworking, and electrical skills. But this would be my final task as day 3 came to a gentle close. Day 4 meant that I was nearing the halfway point for this challenge. I had set out to make it a whole week living out of this RV, but with each passing day, I became more at peace with my surroundings. Yes, my RV was small, quaint, quiet, and a little pale, but it provided me with comfort. Each piece of furniture felt lived in, and I started to feel more at home than ever before. But I couldn't fall into a false sense of security. This moving, humble abode might feel safe now, but in Project Zomboid, danger constantly grows, and my very livelihood could be at risk with each turn. I settled back at the bridge just outside of West Point and caught the latest episode of Life and Living, which would advance my carpentry skill. Unfortunately, I was just a few experience points short of level 2, so I decided to head down a main road towards Louisville where I could track down a warehouse building. Inside there would be enough crates that in the process of disassembling my carpentry experience should advance to level 2. However, nothing is as simple in Project Zomboid as you first envision it, and the moment you take your eye off the ball, or the road in this case, disaster can strike. Oh my god, I was looking at my other monitor for a split second. Dude, that's not good. I can't do that. I can't do that. That was horrible. Yes, I had crashed into a tree at 60 miles an hour. As you can imagine, this did a lot of damage to my RV. My engine health was now in the red, meaning that there is a possibility that my engine could just stall at any given moment. But in order to fix this stupid fucking mistake, I would have to make some repairs to my engine, and in the process, I would have to start leveling up my mechanics and metalworking. And trust me, because this is going to become a repeated issue in the last few days. Dude, I'm stalling. Although I managed to stutter my way over to the warehouse where I was headed towards in the first place, and found that the entrance was surrounded by zombies. There is a lot of zombies here, so I pulled around the back of the warehouse in order to kill them off one by one. Oh, dude, honestly, spears, thank God for them, man. They're so good. With all the zombies in the immediate vicinity taken care of, I broke through a window to enter the warehouse and snacked on some chips before going to loot. Oh, dude, there's so many things in here. There's so many. Ooh, propane tank. That's exactly what I needed. I need a welder's mask now. There's one. Nice, we got one. Ooh, a trolley. That's amazing. I found everything. Nails, duct tape, saws, hammers, axes, and so much more. These tools and supplies would be a huge addition to my RV and my overall wealth. I drove my RV around the warehouse and parked inside to help with hauling all the loot. And once everything was properly secured, I started to disassemble the crates as originally planned in order to help develop my carpentry skill. I followed this up by reading the carpentry book in my RV that I had managed to loot earlier, which gave me a nice useful experience boost. However, even with this experience boost and the rest of the day spent disassembling crates, I hadn't even managed to reach level 2. Yes. So I decided to call it for the day and headed to sleep for the night, bringing me to the last 3 days of this challenge. Day 5 started with what I would consider to be a little bit of a rash decision. After my previous blunders in leveling up my carpentry skill, I decided to simply attempt picking up every crate in the warehouse. This would come with a significant likelihood that due to my skill being so low, I would break the crates as I attempt to collect them. However, I did decide that even the risk was worth it over the slow and taxing grind of attempting to brute force my carpentry level, and my faith in random chance paid off. Ooh. I got one. Yeah, after several attempts, I did manage to collect my first crate, which I promptly placed right in my RV. And this was accompanied by a further 2 crates that I had obtained from the warehouse. Although the knowledge that I had spent countless hours disassembling crates on day 4 to no avail was occupying the back of my mind. But I kept my eyes focused on the path ahead to conquer the last 3 days of this challenge. With the warehouse fully looted, I drove back onto the main road heading towards West Point. But the consequences of my 60-mile-per-hour blunder from the day before continued to haunt me. The RV stalled several times in this journey, and I even managed to hit a zombie on the road, causing my engine health to decline even further. Oh no, the engine, dude. No, the engine. It's so badly damaged now. This would become a significant issue. If I continue to run into zombies, it would be likely that my engine will die altogether, meaning my ability to drive and my ability to complete this challenge would be in serious jeopardy. I stopped off at the bridge just before West Point, as this would be my home for a short while. So in order to repair the RV, I would need to level up my mechanics and metalworking skills, or else my efforts would be largely pointless. And since the terms of my challenge are that I'm not allowed to drive any other vehicle or live anywhere else other than this RV, I need to do everything I can to repair it. So I began working on my mechanic skill by taking apart some of the vehicles on the bridge and then reassembling them to gain experience. While this wouldn't lead to a huge amount of experience, over time it would gradually increase my skills enough to do some proper repairs on the RV. Fortunately, I had obtained a propane torch for the warehouse earlier, meaning that I was able to dismantle the car wrecks on the bridge to help with my metalworking skill. Although, in order to make the required repairs on my RV, I would need to reach at least level 3 in metalworking and at least level 5 in mechanics. So yeah, I came to terms with the fact that it would likely take up the remainder of the day just so I can grind this skill. But I disassembled all the wrecks on the bridge and then followed that up with reading the next 2 skill books for metalworking and mechanics. With all the wrecked cars around me, I would also be able to search for the required spare parts to make repairs to the RV, so this way I can get it up and running again if I need to. While it took me a while to scavenge all the parts I needed, I did manage to get the RV in some slightly better health. I would, however, need to head into town to find some further resources at the local car shop. This was definitely a risk with my RV in its current state, but if I wanted to complete this challenge of surviving 7 days, it's a risk I would have to take. So I head into town with the RV and tried to clear out the zombies that I could by shooting them out the window. This was a bit of a loud tactic, but that actually paid in my favor, since the zombies chasing me would be lured away from the car shop where I was headed, and with my careful movement and patience, I was able to both kill a significant portion of the zombies, but also lure away any of the remainders, giving me a clear shot at getting into the car shop with no hassle. This allowed me to safely park inside the shop and close it up, resting for the night and heading into day 6. Surprisingly, I had reached day 6, and the finish line was officially on sight. I had some things I wanted to check off my list and a final goal of completely repairing the RV before the end of day 7. So I got to work. I spent most of the morning clearing out the garage, looting everything from spare engine parts to brand new tires, which would replace the current ones on my RV, bringing it to a much nicer condition. Once I had looted the remainder of the car shop for everything valuable, I focused on leveling up my skills further. I headed back to the bridge where I spent most of day 5 and got back to work by disassembling the remaining wrecks to gain gain more experience. And after another significant grind, I finally reached the first goal today, leveling my metalworking and mechanics skills to level 3 and level 5 respectively. There we go. This would equip me to finally repair my RV to a significantly better place. I took some time out of my 6th day to repair the hood, engine, and the trunk of the RV with all the knowledge I had obtained and the parts that I had looted. After some time spent focused on the task at hand and some significant elbow grease, I looked upon my work with pride. I had successfully brought my RV back to life. In fact, it was repaired to such a state that I could confidently drive around even at the risk of occasionally hitting a zombie or two. The sweet, sweet thud of smacking up some zombies on the road I had so desperately missed. With my RV having a new lease on life, I hopped in and decided to head somewhere new to settle in. While at first my travel seemed aimless, spanning long and winding roads, I continued to put my foot on the pedal, passing some towns and driving through `. This was a peaceful drive, all things considered. However, I was accompanied with the concerning sounds of a helicopter event behind me, which certainly didn't bring me the comfort I was hoping. A helicopter? I think that is. Yep, it's directly over me. While passing through 𝐻, I attempted to loot the police station in my travels, but in my scouting of the area, it was clear that there was far too many zombies, making even the thought of attempting a police station run a bit too risky, especially considering I had come so far. I decided to pass all the way through 𝐻 and headed further down the road in the direction towards Rosewood. During my journey, I stumbled upon an industrial area, a welcome break from the extended road trip I had already been on. Also, it wouldn't hurt to check for some more loot in the case there was anything I hadn't been missing. So, with the intent to stay here for the night, I did what I could to lure away the zombies using the RV, and followed it up by killing any of the remaining stragglers. Oh my god, bro. Better fix my face. After the car shop, I spent some time luring away more zombies from the warehouses and parked my RV for the night inside one of the buildings. I did a quick looting run before bed and collected what I could find from the warehouse before settling inside my RV. I spent some time enjoying the finer things in life. Let's just make a celebratory stew. The true luxury of RV living on the last night of my journey. Some food, some organization, and some relaxation. Most importantly, I allowed myself some time to reflect on the last 6 days. But my reflection was short, because in Project Zomboid, danger is a constant, and nothing is truly safe. But at least I was safe inside my mind. So I headed to sleep, ready to take on the final challenges that awaited me on the last day. Day 7. The final day. I was not done just yet, and despite the confidence with which I had launched into the last day, I still had to be cautious, because nothing is certain on the open road. So I set myself a goal for the day. I wanted to bring my RV back to its former glory. I wanted to repair the entirety of the RV's condition in honor of our journey together. I spent the early morning looting the remainder of the warehouse and kicked off on my final road trip by heading towards Rosewood. I had a destination in mind. Just outside of Rosewood, there was a drive-in theater. This would be an ideal location to track down the parts I require to complete the repairs on my RV. So I headed through Rosewood and passed by the police station. Part of me wanted to stop and investigate. However, I decided to hold off on this for now in the interest of my initial goal. I would, however, return later to do a bit of looting. Upon my arrival to the drive-in theater, I was confronted with a concerning size horde of zombies. Oh my god, dude. Everywhere I go, there's just a mini horde of zombies, but I need these cars. However, this was the exact circumstances I had prepared for over the last 7 days. Thanks to my trusty RV, I had used it to bunch up all the zombies into a large group and drove ahead of them, allowing me to pick them off using my shotgun. This was a surefire way to eliminate the horde. However, my plan was met with an insurmountable roadblock in the lack of my shotgun ammo I had obtained. We're all out of shotgun shells. Damn it, dude. There's so many still. All right, I might have an option. I gotta get my car a little way, though. That's right. I was fucked. But I wasn't gonna give up that easily. I had to finish repairing my RV. If possible, I'm sure this RV would have done the same for me, right? Well, I headed back and scavenged through my spare guns, see if I had any extra bullets for any of them. Luckily, I had a rifle with a little bit of ammo I could use, but this unfortunately wouldn't be enough. So my only option was to craft some spears out of the wood I had collected over the course of this challenge. If you didn't know, spears are, in my opinion, one of the best melee weapons you can craft. However, they do break very quickly, so I would have to craft a few extras to hold on me in case of one breaks. And with my equipment sorted, I returned back into the parking lot and got to work. Man, finally killed pretty much all of them. But after a long and tiring battle, I managed to kill off the remaining zombies, allowing me to free roam to strip the remaining vehicles of all the high condition parts. It was a somewhat cathartic experience. Thinking back on all the adventures we've been on together, in a strange way, this RV had been my only partner on this long road trip, so I worked tirelessly to return it to its former glory, using some of the finest parts I could find from all the abandoned cars in this parking lot. I replaced the windows, the doors, the seats, the hood, even the gas tank, and I managed to return my RV to 75 health. I don't even think I've ever seen my RV at this health before, but it was quite exciting to finally see it this repaired. It was a sight to behold. With my goal completed, I decided to spend the remainder of day 7 looting nearby targets. Firstly, in my fully repaired RV, I crossed over to the other side of the road at the nearby gas station, giving it a quick run through and filling up my gas tank in the process. That just left me with one final goal, to return back to the police station I had passed earlier in Rosewood. But I will admit, the drive to the police station was a peaceful one. Even though I was surrounded by the living dead and the remains of a world before around me, I was close to the completion of my goal. I couldn't help but enjoy the last few moments that I was going to have with this RV. And with me finally arriving at the police station after dealing with a couple zombies and some sprinters, I made quick work of looting the police station, checking the lockers and armory for some gear or weapons that would come in handy. Guns, tools, or clothing, whatever it was, it didn't matter. I just quickly tossed everything into my bag so I could return back to my RV. And with that all sorted, I was ready to hit the open road. Now, the one thing I was never able to do over the course of these last 7 days was settle down somewhere, see how long I could survive and build something significant. Well, let me tell you, because this challenge was about to get a whole lot crazier. This right here is my base. Well, at least it used to be. After spending many hours living within the confined space of an RV, I wanted something much more suitable for surviving the apocalypse. And this right here is exactly that. A completely near impenetrable base with a fully stocked garage and a decked out living space. All the essentials you'd need, you could find them here. At least that's what I had imagined. In order to build something like this, it was gonna take a lot of time and a lot of work. So we need to start off with the basics. So, the beginning of this adventure was as much about taking stock of what I had and then planning for what I needed. Coming into this with my RV and everything inside of it meant that I had to take some time looking through my storage and noting down all the stuff required to make this huge base a reality. Previously, I had already survived a whole week while living out of this very RV, so scavenging for loot at this very moment was the least of my worries. However, this won't always be the case. Well, anyways, I knew that this base I wanted to build would mostly consist of metal walls, so metal sheets and propane were going to be worth more to me than life itself. First, I sorted through all my crates, separating the propane and metalworking supplies, and once I had gotten a better idea of what I had in stock, I began by making a plan for how I was going to lay out the main structure of my future base. My plan here is to turn this entire intersection into a livable space for me and my RV. Now, I will admit, in my 900 plus hours of playtime in this game, I've never once dabbled into the metalworking side of base building before, so I had to look over their metal costs involved on their wiki to get a better idea of how expensive this base was truly going to be. Each metal wall I would want to construct would cost me at least 3 metal sheets if I just wanted to settle with the lowest tier of metalworking walls. Luckily, I had been keeping stock of metal sheets in my RV, and if I ever needed any more, I could just disassemble some car wrecks on the road. But even if I had the metal required, I still need to place down wall frames first to upgrade into metal walls. So with that in mind, I spent a few hours chopping down trees and sawing them into planks. This would give me the materials I need to at least get the wall frames built. I moved a lot of the loot into the center of the intersection since this would be the future location of my home, and I began to set up the framework of the external walls of my base. This was a pretty long process since chopping down the trees and cutting them into planks for the frames took a fair while, but after working my way through the night, I finished up the wood frames for the outermost wall earlier on in the morning. With one task out of the way, I need to address one of the key obstacles stopping me from getting this base up and running pretty quickly. In order to build metal walls, I would need to level up my metalworking skill. This was because in my previous journey, I hadn't needed to build a base at all. Since I had been living out of my RV, that meant that I'd have to spend a lot of time getting both the levels and recipes needed for a fully metal base. And on top of that, I would need to get my hands on a metalworking magazine that would give me the recipes for the metal walls themselves. So with the two goals established, I spent some time prepping for a trip. I would gear up with guns and ammo to journey into the town of Madra nearby. I loaded up into the RV and headed into town to get a gauge on the current landscape and see how easy it would be to get my hands on one of the magazines that I would need. But when I closed in on the bookstore, it turns out it was completely overrun with zombies.
Yeah, there's a lot of zombies here. This is gonna be pretty hard.
So I decided to try and clear out some of the horde with the guns and ammo I had prepared, but when I hopped out of the RV, things didn't exactly go to plan.
This is a bit of a problem. Oh my god, my guy's in extreme panic. Oh boy. Oh god, I can barely aim straight.
With that drama out of the way, I quickly loaded back into the RV and made my way out of town to take some beta blockers and get some rest. Later on, I headed back into town to try and finish up what I started by clearing out some of the zombies near the bookstore. And after picking them off for a few hours, I managed to clear the entrance of the bookstore, although this would turn to be a risky situation. I decided it was worth saving the ammo needed to fully clear the horde, so I rushed into the bookstore to quickly loot whatever magazines and books I could find. Fortunately, in my search, I found this.
Ooh, metalworking 3. That's good. Do need that.
And while I wanted to stay and search the bookstore more thoroughly, things were quickly starting to get a little too dangerous for my liking. After rushing out of the bookstore, I decided to take what I found so far and head back to my new base location. While I hadn't found all the books I had hoped for, I had got my hands on a few essential magazines that would let me get a start on my base. Once I returned to the crossroads, I began to make some progress on building up the metal walls. And while I felt like I was making quick work of the structure, I immediately realized that the material cost for a base of this size would be, well, a lot.
I'm starting to realize just exactly how long this is gonna take.
So after I constructed only 1/4 of the base, I had already completely run out of both metal sheets and propane, which put a stop to my plans for now. The next morning, I set out on a primary goal to getting some more propane so I could continue building. Fortunately, I knew one place that I could get plenty of propane, and that was the gas station. I made my way there with my RV and found a pretty large group of zombies in the parking lot, so I spent some time clearing them out so this way they wouldn't be a nuisance to me. After the zombies were cleared, I quickly looted the gas station for any food, drinks, or materials that might come in handy. It was around this point that I realized a small problem with my plan. I had lost track of time and I hadn't thought about the fact that there had been no power at this point in my run, so there would be no way for me to get the propane I needed from the pumps. This unfortunately meant that I would have to find a generator to power up the pumps at the gas station. So even though it wasn't in my original plan, I quickly pivoted to searching for a generator since I didn't even have one in my RV.
It doesn't look like there's power. I might need to get a generator then.
I headed closer into town and came across a group of storage units, and luckily from my prior runs, I knew that this could be a great location to search for a generator. But there were also a huge number of zombies in the area, so I spent some time scouting around to see the scale of what I was up against.
Sure is a lot of zombies though.
Now, this wasn't an insurmountable amount of zombies, but I guess I was feeling a bit slack at the time. So instead of addressing the problem at hand, I took a short detour to a warehouse nearby. Even though I needed a generator eventually, it didn't change the fact that I would also need plenty of tools and metal resources. And after clearing a bunch of zombies near the warehouse, I spent some time sorting through all the loot and found plenty of useful tools, carpentry items, metal sheets, and even welding rods.
I'm just gonna grab everything that I might need. Ooh.
I also found an antique stove, which while it wasn't a priority, it would be something I'd want to come back for and pick up later for my new base. After going through the whole warehouse, I decided to stop being so lazy and start tackling the main issue at hand by just clearing out all the zombies in front of the storage units. And after working overnight clearing them out, I was finally able to search the units themselves by the next morning. Luckily enough, my Luke Goblin senses were pointing me in the right direction because I quickly got my hands on the generator I had been searching for.
Ooh, generator, let's go.
So with my newly found generator, I loaded it into the RV and made my way back to the gas station where I connected it to the pumps. First, I would begin loading up my gas cans with all the gas I could fit in them, and then followed up with filling up all my propane. Unfortunately, this wasn't exactly possible in the base game, but I did have a mod installed that would allow me to do this, meaning this would be a one-stop shop for all my gas and propane needs for the future of this run. And just in case you might be interested in what mods I'm using, you can check the description below where I'll have a list provided for you guys. Usually, I don't tend to play with a lot of the crazy, wacky OP mods, but I do always play with a lot of the vanilla expansion ones or quality of life kind of mods, so if you're just curious, you can check below. Now, anyways, with both the materials and propane obtained, I could finally continue work on my envision for the road base. So I made my way back and continued work on upgrading the walls, but unfortunately, it didn't take long for me to run out of metal sheets.
So I've already pretty much ran out of metal sheets to use.
And normally this wouldn't be a huge problem. I would just spend some time searching through the area to find some more, but there was a catch. One thing I didn't mention up until this point was that in this run, there was a possibility that with each passing day, I could be attacked by a giant zombie horde. Not only would I be guaranteed an attack once a week, but there was a completely random chance that one could attack me at any time. The reason I bring this up is because my base was barely standing, and it was definitely not what I would consider defendable. So each hour I wasted searching through the buildings and clearing zombies could potentially lead to me being, well, dead. So instead of going on another aimless looting run, I instead opted for the guaranteed method of finding metal sheets by dismantling wrecks. This was both a way that I could get metal sheets more consistently near my base, but also would help level up my metalworking for my long-term plans. Essentially, it was a win-win.
There it is.
After dismantling a heap of wrecks, I made more progress on the shell of my future base, which was actually starting to take shape. Well, kinda. I quickly placed some storage boxes with spare metal I had so I could finally start stocking up some more loot. And then I continued on the path, dismantling car after car after car, which honestly might have convinced me to not make a metal base in the first place if I wasn't already committed so hard to the idea of it, but I made a decision and I'd have to suck it up and get the job done. And after a long, continuous, and daunting task, I finally finished the outer shell of the metal base and started to set out the frames of the inner portion of my living space, which required, you guessed it, more planks. So I bet you can see where this is going. I cut down more trees into logs and saw the logs into planks. And maybe it was a fact that this area was pretty peaceful, or maybe I was just going a little bit insane, but all the things considered, my mood was pretty high. Now, the only downside to all this work is that my character would get ridiculously exhausted, since one thing had come in the last few weeks of my journey was that I was pretty much just skin and bones. I was concerningly underweight. Now, I know what you're thinking, this guy is pretty tough and meaty and kind of handsome, but unfortunately the cruel reality was that my weight was something I'd had to keep trying to address as the time went on. And if you don't know much about Zomboid, your character's weight can be quite the burden. In my case, my character was very underweight, which in simple terms means that I was weak and easily exhausted. The only way to fix that problem was by fattening myself up with tasty high-calorie foods. And now that I say that out loud, it doesn't actually sound so bad. So anyways, once I'd have my outline down of my inner base, I crafted a metal workbench. I don't really know why, since I couldn't figure this out, but I'm not really sure how to use it. So since I had the spare metal, I just crafted one anyways. I'm sure it'll come in handy down the line. And if anybody here knows exactly what to do with this thing, please let me know in the comments. And with gaining weight on my mind, I spent the next few hours turning Mr. Brollow into Big Brollow. And then I got some sleep. The next morning, I continued with the grueling task of getting fatter by making myself a hearty stew. Though the next few days would be a little bit routine. I'd work on the wall, run out of propane, do a run to the gas station to fill up, and then return to continue on the walls. I peppered in some car wreck dismantling, which came in handy since I had just recently reached level 7 in metalworking. This was very important since it meant that I now had enough experience to craft metal gates, which would help with the outer perimeter of my base. With that in mind, I decided to focus on getting some of the metal gates down. Unfortunately, I happened to be missing wire, which is one essential item that I would need for constructing the gates. So I headed into town to collect the wire that I would need, and I picked up some extra materials along the way.
I'm gonna check the bar here because there is usually alcohol, which would be pretty helpful, like bourbon for lighting things ablaze.
And since I was in the area, I went back to grab something I'd spotted earlier, the antique oven that I had left behind in the warehouse from earlier. After installing it back in my base, it wasn't much, but this base was actually starting to get somewhere. Now I could properly cook somewhere other than my RV, which was kind of comforting. So as I woke up the next day, I was faced with a bit of worrying news. Tonight would be the first horde night, and to be honest, this was not ideal. I tried to set out two key goals for the day to prepare. The first would be to finish the metal gates I had collected the resources for earlier, and the second would be to build the stairs to give myself a bit of a vantage point for the horde. So with the little time to waste, I got to work, quickly making some food and organizing my belongings before finally placing down the metal gates at the entrance of my base. Then I was focused on the next goal, the stairs. There was just one small problem. Well, a pretty big problem actually. I would need to get my carpentry to level 6 in order to build the stairs on my base.
I think, I might need to get a little bit. I need to get 2 more levels so I can make a staircase, so.
And no matter how hard I grinded during the day, I couldn't get enough progress to level up in time. I spent all afternoon placing down wall frames to try and get far enough, but it was no luck. With not much time remaining, I turned my focus to preparing for the horde. I grabbed my best weapons and spare guns just in case I'd need it. I loaded up all the magazines in advance and waited patiently for the zombies to attack. And after not much waiting, they had arrived.
Boy, here they come. There's a sprinter right there. Fuck, they're breaking my walls. Dude, why did my gun keep jamming for? Dude, why do I keep jamming?
right now? I decided in the moment that it would be the best to push outside of my base, stopping them from doing too much damage to the walls. At first, this felt like it might be a bit of a risky decision, but they were so distracted wailing at my walls that it pretty much gave me a clean shot to start wiping them out.
Thinking about it now, keep hitting my walls. Yes, keep hitting them. Ooh, that one was, wow. A little switcheroo on that guy.
This was a trade-off since I was watching them break the walls that I'd given my blood, sweat, and tears for, but I quickly worked my way through them from behind without them doing any permanent damage to the structure. With the first horde of many that I would face out of the way, I had laid down to rest after a tiring battle. To say that the stench of rotting flesh ruined my sleep would probably be a little bit exaggerated, but it wasn't pretty. The pile of corpses outside weren't exactly a pleasant addition to the decor of my new base, so even though it was kind of, well, nasty, I spent the morning moving corpses away from the wall and throwing them into a pile.
I wanted to remove all the corpses that were along like the sides of the walls.
Corpses in Project Zomboid can be kind of a silent killer. The more they build up, the more likely it is for you to get seriously sick, and in some cases, it can even kill you. So this was kind of necessary. And not to mention, but it had its perks. Later on, it would be easy for me to access their clothes if I wanted to level up my tailoring skill by tearing them apart. Still nasty, but it could come in handy. So I directed my focus back to leveling up my carpentry, knowing that the best way to get experience would be by dismantling large beds, since they give you the most experience in my opinion. I headed over to the Madra Motel where I'd be able to find a huge amount of them to take apart. It didn't take me long to clear out the zombie population, and after a short nap, I made my way inside. I would pretty much spend my whole day inside this motel, dismantling so many beds that honestly I started to question if I was even making good use of my time. And finally, after 12 full in-game hours, my carpentry was now level 6.
There we go.
I started to make my way back to the shelter where I spotted a large truck, which it turns out it was in great condition. And on top of all that, this truck had a staggering amount of storage space, 343.
Oh, 343. Yes, please.
Personally, one of the largest trunk spaces I've ever seen. Luckily enough, I had chosen the burglar profession, so I was able to hotwire it, fill it up with some gas, and it was good to go. Getting both these vehicles back home, however, was less than ideal. Since neither of them were able to be towed, I had to use some random car I found nearby to get them back to my base. But after a bit of switching about and picking up a better tow truck along the way, finally all the cars were home safe. We were about 2 weeks into my adventure at this point, and finally I felt like it was going somewhere. I had level 6 carpentry, so I was able to build a set of stairs near the entrance, and with just one more carpentry level, I'd be able to build level 3 walls. So since I had the carpentry book needed to give me the experience boost, I spent some time in the RV reading. Afterwards, I took my shiny new big truck towards the forest nearby and cut down heaps of trees for building with. This truck was a game changer. For loot runs like this, since I could fit huge amounts of materials in the back, I managed to bring a grand total of 74 logs, which I spent a few hours sawing into planks so that I could begin to place a roof over my garage. And this was a pretty relaxing and in some ways satisfying task. Honestly, my biggest problem was that I was so calm I started to forget where I was walking.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I almost just killed myself. My health is so low because I fell like 2 feet. Oh god, I gotta be careful next time.
After surviving that minor misstep, I continued to set out the outline of my second floor. I managed to reach level 7 in carpentry, which would enable me to upgrade the walls for my second floor, and before tackling that, I decided to place some carpets for my second floor bedroom. The second floor was starting to take shape, not just as a structure, but as a home. I also managed to build a patio space above the garage where my RV would be stored. I had a lot in mind for this project. Like I said earlier, I had a rough idea of how I wanted to make it. Firstly, I wanted to utilize the metal exterior as a first layer of protection since they can take quite the hit from an oncoming horde. Next, I wanted to have 2 separate forms of space. A garage to store any cars, tools, and generic loot that you wouldn't find laying around in a kitchen. Speaking of, I also wanted a fully open living space with a kitchen, bathroom, and an area for the TV and bookshelves. I also left enough space at the bottom of the design to store my RV, sort of like another garage in the garage. Lastly, on the second floor, I would put my bedroom, where in hopes to have some hot, steamy My roof would also have plenty of extra space for maybe a rooftop farm, but that would probably be the last thing I do. And as an added bonus, I should also be able to paint these walls down the line. I was honestly truly living quite the life of luxury. My Zomboid character seems to have a better life planned out for him than I do for myself. However, the base wasn't really done yet, so in the meantime, I was still living out of my RV. But eventually, I would hope to be moving into this base living in it full time.
Oh, it was a good soup.
The next couple days were all about progress, repairing, constructing, collecting wood, and repeating the process over and over. And over. Honestly, the only thing that kept me sane through all of this was how routine it all was. I was lost in a never-ending cycle and endless repetition, driven only by the hope that one day I could sit down on a cozy couch in a beautiful, comfortable, painted room and look out the window to a better world, one free of zombies and taxes? Maybe the latter was a little ambitious, but a man can dream. After grinding away for over 2 days, I was faced with the worrying news that a new horde was on its way. Ideally, I would have had the time to set up a proper walking area around the second floor to use as a lookout to fight the horde, but I had to prioritize. However, I was starting to run extremely low on ammunition. I quickly made a plan to visit the local police station to see if I can grab some more ammunition or guns, although when I got there were a lot more zombies surrounding it than I had hoped for.
Oh boy, this police station's full of zombies.
So I took a little bit of a risk and started unloading on the horde with my shotgun. But when I ran out of ammo, I had to make a pretty tough decision on whether to rush in and try to loot some ammunition or cut my losses. And naturally, I made the stupid decision.
If I can just quickly get in there and loot.
Ooh. No.
That was really close. I know the zombies are going inside the building. Okay. That's a problem.
I had completely forgotten that I would need a sledgehammer to actually break into the police station, so all this was pretty much for nothing. And with little time to waste, I raced home and prepared for the horde. This is where things get a little bit interesting, because there was an issue with my core base design that I hadn't really thought about. My vantage points from the roof weren't actually able to see any of the zombies on the walls.
I can't see down here. A small problem in my design. They're gonna break through my gates.
So as they started to surround my base, I'd either have to sacrifice the entire base itself or exit my base and clear them out from outside. Naturally, I couldn't afford to have them take control of everything I'd worked towards, so I sacrificed the safety of my roof to push out and clear them from outside.
At least they're not, like, focusing me.
And while I thought it might be a dangerous decision, it turns out the zombies were more interested in hugging my walls instead of hugging me. So after another hour or two of picking them off, I had survived another horde night. The next day pretty much went the same as the day after the last horde night. I picked up all the mushy, rotten zombie corpses and piled them up somewhere further away where I could loot them and burn them later. And again, it was pretty nasty, but a survivor's gotta do what a survivor's gotta do. Fortunately, the base was in a pretty good condition. I mainly had to repair the main fence gates as they had taken the most damage. This horde did teach me something valuable though. In order to safely pick off the hordes in the future, I would have to build some kind of external wall or peek down so that I wouldn't have the same problem with not having a line of sight on them. This would be something I'd write down to address later on. I spent the next couple days repairing, building on my base, and furnishing it with all the furniture and appliances that I had found in my travels. Things were really starting to take shape. Now, I felt both safe and comfortable inside these walls. Honestly, it felt a little strange. Since I had been living out of my RV so long, having somewhere neat and open was refreshing and a change of scenery. Unfortunately, I couldn't really rest easy just yet though. I had to work towards preparing myself for the future, getting more guns and ammunition, setting up a consistent food source, and further reinforcing my base for the next horde. With my goals for the near future established, I got to work. Heading back to the police station from a few days ago, I snuck inside with my sledgehammer, looting whatever I could find, but unfortunately there was no guns or ammo, just a bunch of equipment.
What in the— what? There is no ammo, just clothing in here. Tell me there's another room I can get ammo.
There's no way. But this put me in a pretty difficult position. Without being able to use the guns I had, I wasn't able to clear out large hordes and loot some of the nearby buildings. But I didn't know of any guaranteed places for more ammunition nearby, so I just ended up aimlessly driving through the town without any real direction. Eventually though, I decided to just head home and pivot my focus on one of my other goals, pretty much a food source. I started laying out the foundations of a rooftop farm. This was pretty important because I was starting to get low on food. And yes, this may shock you, food doesn't exactly grow instantly. It was a good idea for this to be set up sooner rather than later. After the main setup for the farm was done, I grabbed some more wood from the forest to craft a few animal traps, laying them in the woods nearby to hopefully catch some birds for food. It was primitive, but necessary to stay alive. Afterwards, I figured it was a good time to set up some rain collectors to later use for my irrigation on my farm, which wasn't too difficult to get set up. With a productive day in the rear view mirror, I went to sleep off the rest of the night. The next morning, I spent organizing all the loot in my base, which by now I'd done a few times, but since I was an idiot, I kept making it a mess again. I did plan on heading to the warehouse I visited earlier in the run, but things took a pretty nasty turn.
What the— what'd I hit? Oh my goodness. How'd this happen? I hit a fucking stop sign and now my arm has a big ass pulling it. I got glass in my arm somehow.
That kind of derailed my plans for the day, since a deep wound like this would need to be stitched up, or it could be the end of my run altogether. So unfortunately, I would have to return back to my base to address this issue. So after cleaning and stitching up my arm, I was forced to sleep off the night yet again. Though with the wound in my arm being dealt with and it's still healing, I decided it would be a good time to head on a bit of a road trip. The nearest location to find ammunition and guns was at a gun store over in West Point, and while this would be a bit of a trek, it was a necessary one. So I headed out early and made my way over towards the gun store, and after clearing out some of the nearby zombies, I made my way in. This looting run was far more profitable than the police station.
Oh yes, this is more like it. This is what I'm looking for.
I was able to gather a decent amount of various guns and ammo, and since it was on my way home, I dropped by the hardware store to get some tools, crafting materials, and I even got my hands on an industrial sized propane tank, which would be super helpful later on.
Ooh, an industrial propane tank? That's really good. I'm definitely taking that back with me.
I also happened to stop at the grocery store to stock up on some food, since it would be some time until my farm was up and running. And then afterwards, I started to head home, cleaning up some zombies on my way, though I didn't know why, but the thuds on the hood of my car provided a certain cathartic release. Each one satisfied me deeply inside, like a hunger was being satisfied. Thud after thud after thud. I couldn't help smiling as their zombie flesh splattered all over my... Anyway, I spent the next day or two unloading all of my loot from the big looting run, and cleaning out and repairing my car, heading back to the warehouse for a few items I left behind, and some buckets of paint. Then on my way home, I grabbed some excess furniture from the trailer park houses nearby, like a chrome sink, a bookshelf, and a large bed, lugging it all the way back to my base to continue furnishing my dream home.
Got a nice little bed for myself. I gotta put a roof over this, but got a bed at least.
By this point, I had almost reached my goal. The base was almost perfect. It was furnished, secure, and well stocked. But I still had a few things that I had to do before I could call it a day. There were a lot of finishing touches like extra defenses, furniture, and of course, power. Because if things got bad, I could always just stick a fork inside the power. So I dealt with the simple things first. Finished up the roof over my bedroom, finished up the patio space next to my bedroom, and then pretty much sealed up the second floor except for the furnishings. I then decided to do a quick run into town to get some extra furniture and some fun stuff for my base. And I definitely did not run into any trouble.
Oh my god, where did all these guys come from? Holy shit, good thing I got out of there. Don't stall. Thank you.
So after that all went down, I thought it'd be best if I headed home. But this was a pretty special night, since this would be the first night I'd actually be sleeping in a brand new bed. So after I assembled my bed in my new bedroom, I settled down to sleep, and maybe it was because I was cooped up in my RV for so long, but in some ways this would be the best night's rest I'd ever get. There was a faint scent of zombie flesh and sawdust in the air, but it was just nice to be in a new space. I then awoke on the next day on day 28. It's kind of crazy to think, but it's almost been a month since I set out to build this fully reinforced base. And with the end goal in sight, I started the day unloading the car, organizing my loot, but most importantly, placing down a lot of the furniture I'd been collecting over the last 4 weeks. This was a pretty satisfying sight to see. After hours and many in-game days working towards this very goal, I was happy to see everything was finally starting to come together. Afterwards, I decided to head into town in search for more things I could put in my new home. This is also where I found a fenced-in neighborhood, which it turned out to be exactly what I was looking for. I then made an opening in the fence to serve as an easy access point to the houses from the main road, which I had also previously cleared of zombies at some point earlier on in this run. So after breaking down the fence, I ransacked all the nearby houses for lights, wardrobes, a fridge, a toilet, a sink, and even much more. But after robbing all these homes of their now unneeded appliances, I headed home. This is also why I love this game so much. Every home and or building on the map has plenty of items, furniture, and random decor that just ties back into the game's sandbox. For example, if I see something I want, I can just take it with me. It's such a freeing experience. Anyways, after I returned back to my base, I quickly unloaded my truck and decided to return back to the same area I was at before, just in case I forgot anything. But that would pretty much be my last run out to town for now. So I took everything that I had been gathering up over the last couple days and decided to place everything down in its final spots around my household.
That's so nice. My house is actually coming together.
I was also lucky enough to get my hands on a second generator at some point, which is exactly what I was after, since it meant I could finally power my house. Now, this is also where my masterpiece would come to life. This husk of what was once a steel cube was now becoming a home in front of my eyes. With each light placed, it lit up. And after a few short hours of me doing interior decorating magic, it was finally done. This would be the penultimate day in this base. Before the next day, I would face a huge horde for the third time in this challenge. And with this base in its final form, I slept better than I've ever slept before, safe and sound in my amazing new home. And although this didn't have wheels on it, it had something my RV could never have: actual real security.
Oh man, is it perfect timing or what, bro? There's a horde night coming tonight, and I just finished my house last night. I think I have an idea. I need to get some more cars though.
However, the final day was all about preparing for the biggest horde yet. I collected a few cars and brought them back to my base to act as a form of barricade in front of the gates. And then I did a few finishing touches on the base itself before preparing my guns and ammunition for the horde that was to come. And just as I finished aligning my new cars in front of the gates, a horde night with over 300 zombies would begin.
Alright, where they all at? Here they come. Follow me, boys. Follow me. Come here. Get off my walls. I think they're breaking the wall. I think they're breaking in some walls. I can't tell. Yeah, they broke in. I think that one. Why is he not reloading? Please, just reload. Get off my walls. Get off my walls. Get off my walls. Hey, quit breaking my boxes. Oh, they're in there. Oh my god! Gun. Why are you pumped? I think we did it. Go to sleep and see what the damage is looking like. Alright, 7 a.m. Morning after the horde. Okay, just one of the crates are messed up. Pretty damn good. I'd say building a giant metal base like this is actually worth it.
And, well, with my base fully complete, I could finally enjoy the peace of mind of finally having a place to live for a while. This is my fortress, and after spending hundreds of days constructing this behemoth of a base, I wanted more. I wanted to rebuild civilization in this desolate wasteland I found myself in. Picture this, a community of survivors and a place they can call home, a village and a sanctuary from the dangers of the outside world. Well, I plan to build all of this, but in order to do all that, we need to go back to where all this left off. This story picks up with me returning to my base, which I had briefly left behind. Except now, I had with me another survivor, and his name, Fishdoor, who I had also met on my previous venture, which I am now returning from. Fish had agreed to come back and work alongside me on this ambitious goal of rebuilding civilization. I gave Fish a quick walkthrough of my base, showing him where we'd set up our defenses and where all the crucial supplies were stored. Though it was familiar to me, to Fish, this was a new home, and it'd take him some time to get accustomed to the new scenery. The two of us sat down and discussed the grand plan. The goal was to reclaim the town and turn it into a suitable outpost. I shared my vision of transforming our base into a thriving hub, complete with a well-organized farm to ensure we'd have a steady food supply. Fortunately for us, Fishdoor has a background in farming and trapping, so it wouldn't be too hard for him to take charge in running the farm for us, a task that would be vital for our survival and long-term success, which frankly was for the best, since I could focus on doing all the fun stuff while he dragged his feet in the dirt all day. But before we can get started on any of that though, I had to deal with the aftermath of a previous battle I had fought. I began the process of removing corpses that had accumulated around the base. It wasn't the most pleasant task, but it was a necessary one to keep the area secure and prevent any corpse sickness from being the death of us. At this point, the sight and smell of the rotting undead was so consistent I had almost become accustomed to it, which probably isn't a great sign, but I kept keeping on. With the immediate area clear, I headed into town to scavenge for food and supplies. Fish stayed back at base to continue prepping for the next few days and weeks ahead. I needed to find enough food to fatten my character up, and I hoped to gather enough resources to help us get through the coming days until the farm was up and running. I made my way through a few stores dispatching zombies as I went, and the streets were eerily quiet, minus the occasional groans of the undead, but I managed to clear out a good chunk of them before I had arrived at a shopping plaza. Among the stores, I stopped by a liquor store, hoping to find some useful items or preferably just something to take the edge off, a habit that I had begun to fall into during my time in the wilderness. But to my surprise, as I was looting the liquor store, I was caught off guard by a sudden presence.
Hello?
Who are you?
My brother. We're holed up nearby. I was seeing if there's any liquor here so we can tend to his wounds.
There's some bourbon right here.
Oh god, please, please, please.
Is your brother okay? What happened to him?
There was raiders. Got whacked in the head with a metal bar. He hasn't woken up.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I can't talk. If you want to follow, we're based nearby at one of the small houses.
You okay? I'm coming in. Oh, I'm so sorry.
God damn it.
What was your brother's name?
Eric. We came over from West Point, and then on the way here, we got attacked. I did make it in time.
That's a hard one. Genuinely, that's really upsetting.
It was the only reason why we came down here. He said we could come down here. He said there's a police station that we could probably loot for some guns to hold up.
I have a settlement up the road, and I did happen to loot that police station that your brother brought up. You know, I reckon we can take your brother back towards my settlement. We can give him a proper burial. I don't know, maybe he can stick around with me.
Yeah, man. That'd be great.
Yeah.
As is the case with most survivors in the apocalypse, 𝐶𝑎𝑢𝑟 had a story of his own. His brother had died in a recent skirmish, and he was now on his own. There was a certain sadness in his eyes, and it was clear he had seen more than his fair share of hardships. But that was the nature of this place and time. Everyone had been through it. Even I had seen my fair share of loss. For one thing, when I buried 𝐏𝐈𝐿 inside the forest, I had to leave some really nice loot on his body. It was a loss I felt dearly even now. Despite the grim circumstances, I invited 𝐶𝑎𝑢𝑟 to join us. I figured he could be a valuable addition to our group, so we headed back to the base together and I introduced him to my friend 𝐓𝐻𝐻𝐻. I briefed 𝐓𝐻𝐻𝐻 on 𝐶𝑎𝑢𝑟's situation, how his brother had met his end, and 𝐓𝐻𝐻𝐻, being the empathetic character he was, responded appropriately.
Fish, are you here?
Yeah.
Is that him? Is his name Fish?
Yeah, he goes by Fish. This is 𝐶𝑎𝑢𝑟. His brother.
Nice to meet you, man.
His brother died. He's. Hey, that's not funny, 𝐓𝐻𝐻𝐻.
We brought 𝐶𝑎𝑢𝑟 up to speed on the grand plan to take over the town. I gave him a thorough walkthrough of the base, showing him our current setup and the areas we need to fortify. 𝐶𝑎𝑢𝑟 seemed eager to contribute in any way he could, and he was asking all the right questions.
Any specialties you can bring to our group?
I used to be a firefighter, so I know my way around an axe.
Oh, that's good to know. Outside is the balcony, the rooftop view, and the rooftop farm.
And you built this with your 2 hands?
I sure did. This took quite some time, but we got it done. And that's what I wanted to tell you about. You know, I've got it all here, man, but I still want more. I want an entire city, a place where we can actually rebuild civilization, bring survivors in and rebuild a world of our own. What do you think about that? I mean, it's ambitious.
I don't mean to, how are we gonna repopulate?
Oh, I'm sure we could find a way.
As the morning of day 2 arrived, our focus was on expanding our ranks and strengthening our base, because in reality, we would need more members to support our ambitious project of rebuilding civilization from the ground up. But with more members comes a larger cost, so we would also need to gather more food and supplies to sustain our growing community. 𝐓𝐻𝐻𝐻 got straight to work on setting up a farm, which would be a crucial part of our food supply strategy. And as if it was planned, day 2 marked the arrival of a new member named Banana Man. By the time I ran into him, he had already become familiar with the 2 other members of our group, but in some way that was a convenient change, since I didn't have to spend a few hours helping him grow accustomed. 𝐶𝑎𝑢𝑟 and I focused on moving our traps further away from the base to improve their effectiveness, and we also gathered some logs for future use. We made the use of the rotting meat pile near our base to gather some extra materials for sheet ropes. Then we used the sheet ropes to stack the logs into neat piles of 4. This made it way easier to transport and manage them, and after a productive session of gathering and organizing, we fully loaded the truck with logs and returned to base. And once we returned home, we took great care to arrange the logs in what I consider to be a scenic display. It went against my programming, but time was of the essence. The remainder of the day was spent scouring nearby towns for additional loot and potential survivors. But as the sun began to set, we decided to all call it a day and head back to our base. Our energy spent, but our mission progressing. On day 3, 𝐓𝐻𝐻𝐻 and I set out on a mission to loot a nearby warehouse. Our goal was to gather as many tools and supplies as we could to support our ambitious plan of reclaiming the town. We arrived at the warehouse and quickly got to work, collecting essential items like axes, hammers, nails, and saws. The next morning, we headed over to the nearby saloon with the hopes of finding some food and precious, delicious, satiating alcohol, the nectar of the gods. I craved the sweet release of drinking away my world burden. Anyways, before we could get inside, we had to take the time to clear out a small horde that had gathered in front of the saloon, which between the 2 of us was just a matter of time. While we were looting, 𝐓𝐻𝐻𝐻 and I stumbled upon an unusual item lodged inside of the chest of a zombie, a massive microwave maul.
What is that in that zombie, bro? What is that?
God damn it, man. So what the f is that thing? What's going on there, bro?
Its size was monstrous, so much that it was bordering on insanity, and in that way, it was like we were 2 peas in a pod, joined together by our broad edges and mammoth scale. So after retrieving it, I decided to mess around with it for a little bit.
Oh. Yeah, you like that? Oh, gosh.
Oh my god. After clearing out the saloon and gathering some interesting loot, including a jukebox, which would let me play and then have to censor copyright music in this video, but we eventually made our way back to base. The truck was loaded with supplies and we began the task of unloading it. But as I started making a hearty soup for everyone, another survivor unexpectedly showed up at our base.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello? My name is Bob.
Oh.
Hello?
How did you find our base?
I was just running. I was just trying to find somewhere to build.
Here, sorry, hold on, I gotta check my soup. You wanna come inside? I'll give you a quick little introduction. Hey man, I mean, I don't know if you have anywhere else to go, but we're kind of recruiting. We need more numbers.
Not really. I've been just running with no food and water, so I'd love to join you if it's possible.
What kind of specialties or qualities do you think you could bring to our group?
In my country, I'd grab some tables and use them, you know? I mean, I'd build stuff, I'd hammer stuff up.
Okay, so you're like a carpenter back where you come from.
Yes.
Since many hands make light work, I invited Bob to join our crew and help us with our goals of expansion. And with Bob now a part of the team, I wrapped up the day by enjoying a meal and freshening up. I bathed in the cold waters of the apocalypse, reminiscing about my life before, all the hopes and dreams I had. I wanted to be a florist, selling flowers on the side of the road and sharing wishes of happiness to weary travel. I don't know where that came from. Sorry. Later that night, we did some minor preparations and checked out Fish Store's new farm, making sure everything was on track and ready for the days ahead. Over the next few days, Bob and I spent most of our time looting the town. We took our large storage truck along for the ride, making it way easier to haul everything back that we found. Our primary goal was focusing on gathering food, cooking items, and any other useful supplies from various houses in the nearby town. On one of the long hauls, Sour, Bob, and I ventured out to search for weapons. We stumbled upon a survivor's home packed with an impressive collection of melee weapons, and after securing some of these weapons, we decided it was time to get Sour a new car to help with our growing operations. And after searching a handful of parking lots, we eventually found what we were after. And with the new car amongst our convoy, we returned home and unloaded our car inventories. Shortly after, Sour let us know that he would be heading off to West Point to search for a friend he had left behind. So that just left Bob and I to spend most of the night organizing the newly acquired supplies into our base storage. Organizing loot is important, because without organization, are we really survivors? Or are we just a different strain of brainless undead, wandering our way around and leaving a trail of destruction? But since we'd finished up organizing by the next morning, Bob and I returned to town with Fish Store, where we unexpectedly ran into Sour on the road. He was heading back from town with someone new in tow, a survivor named Taya. Whoa! Oh my god. Hello? What's going on? Who's that in your car?
It's my neighbor.
Yeah, I'm Sour's old neighbor.
You come from West Point too? You with your Sour's neighbor, right?
Yeah.
We introduced ourselves and discussed our grand plan of transitioning from a base to a full-fledged village. What's your name again? Sorry, I don't think we've met.
It's Taya.
Oh, Taya. Well, hello. What kind of qualities do you think you bring to the group?
I can do foraging.
That's not that bad. Foraging's pretty good. We can use the bait. But yeah, just make yourself at home, Taya. Welcome to the group. With the future village in mind, Bob and I continued our search for recipe magazines to help upgrade our vehicle's armors. We knew that this would be a useful upgrade, but in truth, it would just look really cool. So we eventually moved on to the school in Modrov to look for skill books and magazines that were left around in the classrooms. We did have to clear a bunch of zombies both inside and around the school, but we managed to loot it successfully. And afterwards, we explored office buildings and other commercial stores in the town before heading back home. With the big loot run behind us, I had a meeting with Sour and Taya to discuss building a defensive wall around the intersection for our new village. What I was thinking about doing is from all the way over here, part where the road ends, like this thing, there's one on each side, like on all four sides. So what we can do is we could build a wall that basically goes symmetrically across each end, like a perfect box that just like connects it all together. So it'll probably even come out here even a bit too, and then it'll like bridge down this way. And while they both gathered wood and mapped out the corners for the wall, I focused on upgrading my old RV with protective armor, preparing it for our next mission. I chose the RV because it would be able to transport all of us while offering plenty of storage space. And to think, I started out with nothing but this very RV, so giving it a nice new upgrade was humbling to say the least. And with what's to come next, we would definitely be needing an armored vehicle. Our main goal right now was to acquire a ham radio. This device would allow us to broadcast a message to areas around the entire map, which I plan to use for calling more survivors to join us and help us with our goal of turning this place into a full-fledged village. However, the only place we knew for sure where we could get one was all the way over at the LV checkpoint. Now, I'm sure you can find one from other locations, but the main reason we chose to go there was because because this area has some of the best available military loot scattered around the entire checkpoint. So we plan to loot this place of all its valuable loot even after acquiring the ham radio. But why do we need to armor my RV? Well, not just because it would look really cool, but also because the entire journey to LV would be a dangerous one. Also, not to mention, but it would ensure that my RV wouldn't break down after hitting too many zombies on the road. So I spent the most of the evening and night adding heavy protection to my RV, and with some of the leftover metal, I crafted myself a full set of metal armor to ensure that I was well prepared for what laid ahead. The next morning, we gathered everyone together for a briefing before our journey to the military checkpoint. And to send everyone off on a high note, I decided to cook up a hearty meal to raise our spirits. So with the RV fully armored and our supplies packed, we hit the road, making our way past Muldroff, past West Point, and through hordes and hordes of zombies. And after a long and arduous journey, we finally arrived. First off, we stopped outside the gates and dismantled the barricades so we can gain entry. Then we first headed to the checkpoint building where we began to break down a door to retrieve our primary objective, a ham radio.
Alright, grab the ham radio.
Yeah, I'm getting it. Alright, I got it. Let's just look for some more radios and walkie-talkies, and also let's loot this place up. Let's loot it clean.
While the ham radio was our main goal, we also planned to loot this entire place of all its various loot and valuable items. So we explored various areas, including a shipping container full of military crates and several military tents that yielded various amounts of precious loot. In reality, it was no surprise that the checkpoint held so many goodies, but it was still a welcome change from the towns that we had been searching previously. Afterwards, we took the RV further up the road to a camp area in search of metal drums for our irrigation system back at the base. Since sustainability was one of our key goals, getting irrigation up and running was essential for our village survival. Fortunately enough, we managed to find 5 or 6 and then loaded them into the RV. And after filling almost every inch of storage space in the RV, we finally began to make our way back home and set up the ham radio. And after a long trek, it felt refreshing to lay my eyes out on the blossoming village, even if it still had a long way to go. As soon as we got back to base, I installed our new radio on the 2nd floor and made a global transmission, reaching out to anyone listening. I explained that we were looking for more survivors and extended an invitation to join us if they were in need of help.
Hello, anybody out there? My name is Brollow. We're located in the crossroads next to Muldroff. We're doing okay here. We have a settlement, handful of survivors. We're looking for good people to join us and help us rebuild civilization. If you're hearing this message, come find us in the crossroads next to Muldroff.
I also provided our location and frequency so that they could reach us at any time and contact us via the radio. And as a signal that things were moving in the right direction, as we began unloading the RV, a new survivor named Halo had arrived at our base, followed closely by another newcomer named Blue Banana. We all introduced ourselves and spent some time getting to know one another, but unfortunately our happy meeting was going to be short-lived, because at that moment I drew my eyes to a warning that I hadn't noticed. A giant horde was expected to arrive the next day. So, as any strong group should, we held a group meeting to discuss our strategy for dealing with the impending threat.
Nice. Let's have a little group meeting real quickly. What's going on, everybody? So as you know, there's a horde coming tomorrow. We're going to be seeing a really big horde tonight. We're going to want to get ready for that because there's going to be over close to 400 zombies coming. Now that we have people coming in, we're going to need to be able to securely protect us all. So I think after the horde, we're going to start working on the wall project to close this entire intersection off. Everybody go ahead and get some gear, get some ammo, guns, food, get everything you need. Prepare for the worst.
The morning of day 11 began with a jarring crash outside my base. Rushing out, we discovered the cause. A new survivor named Cheese had accidentally crashed into our garage and colliding with one of our parked cars.
What? Hello? What the f are you?
Excuse me, you just drove into my garage and crashed into my car. Who the hell are you? Get out of that car. What do you think you are? Just flooring it into my house, man.
I'm sorry, the road was supposed to be clear here. All my maps did say there was something here.
Did you get my message?
Yeah, I got a message, but I didn't know it was a base in the middle of the fucking road.
This is our settlement, man.
You gotta give me some credit. I'm going full speed. This bad boy has barely got any gas left.
All right, yeah, I guess that's fair. That's fair. Welcome, Cheese. So if you're looking to join our settlement, this is it.
I'd love to join, dude. I'd love to.
After the initial shock, needing any helping hands we could get from the oncoming horde, we welcomed Cheese into our group. But with Cheese set up and now on board, we shifted all our focus to prepping for the incoming horde. The entire morning and early afternoon were spent fortifying our defenses and lifting our spirits. We had some fun in the living room, cranking up the jukebox with totally legal music that I can definitely share with you all and letting loose. But when the celebrations were over, the horde began to approach, and we made final preparations, making sure our guns and ammo were ready. And for a while, silence fell upon the village, knowing that what was next could be the biggest threat we'd ever face. And when the attack began, zombies poured in from all directions. We stationed ourselves on all sides of the base, putting up a fierce defense. In truth, I had a couple close calls, nearly getting overwhelmed.
Oh, that was close. God. Oh my God. There's so many. Oh. I can't be doing that. I can't be doing that. They're on the wall over here. Get them off this wall. Oh. We're doing it. We're doing it. Guys, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Just stay alive.
But after a fierce battle, the groans of the undead finally started to diminish. As a customary at this point, we celebrated our survival with a makeshift party in the kitchen, completed with a table covered in beer.
Let's celebrate. Let's have a drink. Oh, shit, look at this. Oh, we're celebrating. All right. Good shit, guys. Good shit. We survived the night, but it's not over yet. Now we get working on the big goal at hand, and that's walling in this entire place. Everybody can build their own little room, their own little personal space if they want. What the fuck are you guys doing?
Mama. Mama.
You guys had a little too much to drink, didn't you?
Mama.
The immediate threat was over, but our work was far from done. To ensure our safety and solidify our claim on the settlement, we planned to build a defensive wall around the entire intersection. But as always, before we could start on that, we spent the remainder of the night cleaning up the numerous zombie corpses scattered around the base. This was becoming a pretty consistent habit of mine, one that I almost relished. Yes, it was disgusting and gross and gooey and bloody and all that, but it was a sign that we were still alive. So even as I palmed over the mushy corpses of the undead, I had a smile on my face. All that to say, I really just needed to get some more alcohol in my system. With the zombie corpses finally cleared, I took some time for personal upkeep, minor base maintenance, and a much needed bath. I reminisce not for my previous life, but for the friends I made along the way here. We were getting closer and closer to the safe haven I've always wanted. Once the village was up and running, I could start my very own florist and greet travelers with fresh bouquet of— I don't know why I keep going back to this. I turned my attention to the log stacks we've been storing outside since day 2. With the planned walls in mind, I spent a good chunk of the day sawing these logs into usable planks for our construction. And as to be expected, the next task was tackling the ambitious project of building a defensive wall around the entire intersection. So I began by setting up the first section of the wall, and it quickly became apparent just how extensive this project was going to be. The scale of the wall was far larger than I had anticipated, highlighting the significant effort required to enclose this entire area.
Boy, this is gonna be quite the compound, man. I'm just noticing how big this is gonna be.
But despite the enormity of this task, the progress made felt satisfying, marking the beginning of a new chapter in our mission to create a secure and thriving village. And in a way, many hands would make light work, so we just kept moving forward. Over the next few days, work on the wall continued with steady progress. We nearly completed one entire side of our ambitious project, but just as we were getting into the rhythm of it, I was caught off guard when a notification appeared above my head, warning me of an incoming zombie horde. The horde was smaller than anticipated, consisting of roughly 50 to 70 zombies, but its sudden arrival caught me off guard for sure. So we had to put the wall project on hold to handle the unexpected threat.
Guys, I just had a horde. I have a horde coming. Gotta protect the walls. Gotta protect the walls. Don't let them break it. Horde, horde, horde.
The fight was intense and chaotic, but we managed to clear out the horde and restore some semblance of order.
I think that's all of them. I think we got them. Do a perimeter check. Check all the walls and see if they're outside banging on it.
With the immediate danger gone, I dove back into my construction work, pushing through the night and to the next day. But by the end of this grueling session, I had not only finished the previously completed side, but also wrapped up the 2 additional sides of the walls. And with only one side left to complete, the end of the wall construction was in sight. And not to mention, but the progress that was made so far was encouraging, and it promised a much needed boost to our settlement's defenses. So I continued working diligently on the walls, incorporating gates to allow our vehicles easy access in and out, and during this period I tried my best to make frequent checks on my people, and unfortunately I became aware that Halo had suffered serious injuries.
We crashed on the way here and we're both at half health.
Oh, for real?
It was a bad crash, yeah. I was drinking and driving.
Hey, you okay? You look kind of f***ed up, man. Oh my god, Halo, what happened to you, bro?
I kind of drank some alcohol and a little bit too much.
Just alcohol? I mean, look, I don't think alcohol does this to you, man.
It turned out that he and Sour had been in an accident while looting in town. Halo's health was critically low, but fortunately, because of our diligent preparation and loot runs, we had a well-stocked medical supply to address his needs. So with the idea that Halo was now heading in the right direction, I left him and resumed my work on the external walls. But unfortunately, not all things in building a village go to plan, and we were about to suffer a grueling loss. Just 2 weeks into this journey, I was jolted by the sound of someone calling out. Someone had died. Rushing over, I found my team gathered around Halo's lifeless body. body.
What? How did he die, man? No, Halo. We have to bury him.
Shattered by the knowledge that we had lost a dear friend, we organized a small funeral and constructed a grave for him, paying our respects to our fallen friend.
Well, we didn't get to know him as much, but at least from what I know of him, he was a pretty cool guy. He was one of the first people who got my message.
He helped me get hinges so we can build the gates for the walls.
He did.
As we processed this loss, we discovered some sad details about Halo's last moments.
Let's take some of his things.
Yeah,
I like his hat. I'll take his
he had
hat.
10 beer cans on him.
Are you serious?
Okay, yeah, he
He
overdosed.
had a journal.
Oh my god, he did!
He has empty beer cans.
He had antidepressants and a bunch of beer cans, man. What was he doing?
Most touching was finding a journal he had been keeping on him since we first met, where he had been writing down his entire life's journey.
He had a journal.
Wait, hold on, what? Oh, he did. Day 1. I woke up in West Point to screaming outside. I went out of my room and suddenly my house was surrounded by an insane mob that tried to break in. The world has gone to shit. Oh god, wait, this actually goes for 10 pages. Woke up bored, depressed, little queasy, and with a splitting headache. I need alcohol. I need to find something to get turned up, man. It's crazy. We'll see you in the next life, Halo. Well, I'm gonna go finish this wall.
After the somber task of burying Halo, we knew that the only way we could honor his memory is by continuing the work towards our goal, so that no one would be able to suffer like he had. As a result, we shifted our focus back to completing the wall. After days and almost weeks of grinding, we finally managed to finish the massive perimeter wall, making our intersection completely secure from external threats and hordes. So with the wall project completed, we held a group meeting to discuss our goals going forward.
Okay, gather around the table. Everybody should be here in spirit, including Halo. His blood is on the floor. We have good news. The wall is officially done. Now, that doesn't mean we're done here in general. We still have a lot of things we can do. Fish is working on a farm, and Sour and Taya are working on their own little property on the north side of the wall. Maybe we can go out and look for more survivors as well to bring in. I think we're on our track to rebuilding civilization.
Hip hip hooray!
Hooray.
It is so anticlimactic.
So the focus now shifted to expanding our settlement, building houses, completing our farms and irrigation systems, and not to mention but finding more survivors to join us in our growing village. The groundwork was laid, and the future held new opportunities for rebuilding and community growth. With that in mind, I took a tour around the village to check on everyone's progress. Fish had made impressive strides with his farm, cultivating a bountiful crop and outfitting his barn.
What's up, Fish?
Hey, Brollow.
How's it working for you?
Good, it's a lot better now that I can actually work.
What's your goals right now?
Finish building. I already got like this. I got the outside part done. It looks nice.
Yeah, this is looking good. Oh yeah, your own little like thing set up here. Okay.
Yeah.
And as for Sour and his friend Taya, they were busy starting on their own personal house, adding a nice personal touch to our growing community. All these small things were turning these houses into homes, and the sense of community grew with each and every day.
Ooh, what you doing? You building like a nice little modern house?
So this is the kitchen. This is the living room. This is my room. This is gonna be a shared bathroom.
Okay. Sick, this looks cool. I see this layout you're going for. I can already envision it, so that's cool.
However, now that Fish's new farm is starting to yield some bountiful harvests, we would need a place to store and preserve all his crops. And since we were already planning on a looting run, Bob and I decided to head into town with a box truck with Sour falling behind on his motorcycle. Our mission was to gather concrete, gravel, and metalworking supplies. And not to mention, but we also planned to go to the motel nearby where we know we could find a freezer. And after arriving and looting everything we needed, I began loading up the truck while Sour and Bob went off to find a new car. And as if out of nowhere, Bob came sprinting back in panic, announcing some bad news.
Bro, we gotta go. There's a horde coming. We gotta go.
Oh my god, there's so many! Oh my... This is Wizard!
While exhausted and unable to run, I managed to regroup with Sour and Bob, but just as we were regaining our footing, I ran into an unexpected trouble.
Sprinter! Help!
If you got me, I got a cure.
I gotta heal.
I was left with a laceration on my arm and both my hands, but fortunately Sour was quick to act, shooting the zombies off of me and helping me get to safety. I was lucky to be alive.
Both my hands are f***ed up, bro. I'm heavily exerted right now. We need a car to get out of here. Bob, call the radio. Tell them we need help immediately.
We made our way back to a safe distance where Fish Store, Banana Man, and Taya soon arrived to assist us.
The car, they're here.
Help us out.
There's more. Oh my god, bro. Heal up, I'll cover you.
Both my hands are scratched up. I think I don't know if I got bit or not, but I don't remember. I got a pretty bad bruise on my arm.
And together we fought off the remaining zombies and made our way back home. I felt grateful that my life had been saved, but in truth, this was an incredibly risky run. And while I tended to my wounds, I had to carefully consider our actions and what we might do differently to avoid putting ourselves in danger again. So, trying to stay out of trouble, I did some mechanical work on the cars, but I was hit by the horrid news that yet another horde was approaching.
Boys, the horde's coming in like 20 minutes.
So 20 seconds.
Yep, pretty much. Eat up if you can. Get nice and full. Here they are.
Now, having confronted a threat like this before, everyone in the village was prepared. But thankfully, all of our hard work on the walls of the village would surely make this a much more manageable encounter. We took our positions around the compound, each covering a different side, just as we had planned.
They're trying to break through the gates. Keep them off the gates.
The horde focused mostly on the walls, allowing us time to pick them off one by one. And thanks to our fortified walls and coordinated effort, we managed to neutralize the entire horde. This was a refreshing feeling. All those days spent grinding to build this wall had actually paid off, and the village was largely unscathed.
Oh yeah, they're all over the walls. All over the walls. This isn't hard, actually. They're just distracted. I'll absolutely take this. Looks like we did it. Not a single wall broke.
Yeah, those walls really helped. Kind of distracted them.
Yeah, for real. If we didn't have those walls, we would probably have been swarmed around our base again.
So with the horde cleared, we finally had the freedom to focus on the next big steps, developing and expanding our village. So over the course of day 19 and day 20, our efforts were geared towards building up the infrastructure, repairing and upgrading vehicles, and enhancing our compound. I spent much of the time working on personal projects, upgrading our vehicles, adding new parts and armor to ensure that they were in top condition. Meanwhile, others in the village worked diligently on their own projects. Houses were being constructed, walls were being decorated, and the village was truly becoming something amazing. And by the end of day 19, we had welcomed 2 more survivors to our camp, Some Guy and Bash. And yes, that's right, his name was actually Some Guy. I don't know, that was his choice. Yeah. But both of them had heard our broadcast from a handful of days earlier, and since then they had been making their way here to join us. Their arrival was a welcome addition, bringing some new skills and resources for our ever-growing group. And I finally took some time to dismantle broken down cars around the compound. My goal was to salvage metal and car parts, which I hope to use for further upgrades and repairs on our personal vehicles. And this task continued all the way into day 20, where I focused on fixing up my personal truck and Sour's truck. Finally, once our vehicles were in better shape, I decided to lead a group of 4 survivors into town, in the hopes to gather some more metalworking supplies and to relocate a trailer I had left behind for additional storage. We started by stopping at a gas station to fill up on propane and gasoline, but while some of the group collected furniture for their new homes, I took the truck to the trailer further up the road. My first stop was at a car wreck site where I had previously left behind a trailer. I dismantled the wrecks and successfully attached the trailer to my truck, and from there, we proceeded to scavenge several houses in the nearby village. Next, we drove further up the road, hitting a few restaurants to find industrial fridges and other useful items for our bases. The night began to fall as we continued our scavenging, and we encountered a few small hordes along the way, which we swiftly dealt with. And by the time we headed back, it was well into the night, transitioning into day 21. Despite the late hour, our haul of supplies and improvements to our vehicles marked a productive and successful day for our expanding village. With so many people on our trip and so many goals in mind, we acquired a heap of useful loot to further the cause of the village. It was definitely another case of many hands making light work. But as we started to make our way back home from our productive scavenging trip, we realized that we had accidentally forgotten one thing far more important than loot. Well, debatably. We had accidentally left Cheese behind at one of the restaurants. A quick but easy decision led us to head back to retrieve him, but we found him in a rather unexpected location.
What are you doing out here? Where'd he go now? Is he taking a shit? Bro, come on. Bro's taking a shit.
Peace.
Come on, what are you doing in there, man? Can we go shit back at home, man? What are you doing in this thing?
Hey, leave me alone. What the hell?
Get out of this, John.
Peace.
After ensuring Cheese had dealt with his personal business and was safely back with us, we continued our journey home. Once we were all reunited back at the village, we unloaded the truck and organized our inventories. The afternoon was spent unwinding, and I took a much-needed break with a sink bath to freshen up. As I bathed, I thought not backwards but forwards, to a future that was quickly coming to fruition. I thought of resting amongst a hall of bottles, not a worry in the world. I thought of the villagers rejoicing. I thought of a florist right in the corner of the town where I could sell. After having a bath, I went around the village to check on the progress of everyone's individual projects. Sour and Taya had been working diligently on their house, which was shaping up nicely.
Oh, dude, I can already see the vision. This looks so cool. I know this is like not even done yet, but I can see it. Like I can just see what you're doing here. You're cooking. This looks sick. Is this your bedroom, right?
Yeah, this is mine.
You gonna have your socks in here?
Yeah. Maybe some mannequins with stripper outfits. I got like 2 stripper outfits.
Okay.
I then also visited Banana Man's house, which was cleverly converted from a restaurant.
Oh, he got the sign out front. Oh, the roof and everything. Okay, wait, this is sick. Wait, is this a house mixed into a spiffo?
Yep.
Oh, dude, this is a vibe, bro. This is a vibe.
In the evening, we all gathered in my living room to enjoy some totally legal and unusable music on the jukebox. A moment of relaxation and camaraderie after a long day of hard work. Looking ahead, I plan to expand the second floor of the house to include a dance floor, bar, and some additional rooms, aiming to enhance our communal space and make the village even more comfortable and inviting. The next week was a whirlwind of construction and community building as I focused on expanding the second floor of our base. With the rooftop farm no longer needed, I began transforming the space like I had planned. I laid down new floors and started construction on additional rooms, one for Bob and another for a designated office or storage space. In the main room, I began crafting a bar and club area, complete with a new roof and initial furnishings. The transformation was coming together and the space was starting to look impressive. I finally felt at peace with my goals. During these days, our settlement attracted several new survivors, each bringing their own skills and energy. Tinkerboom, Ryu, John, Willow, and Cheddar. It was exciting to see our community grow and diversify. New personalities joined and changed the dynamics. For a moment, it was like we weren't in the apocalypse at all.
Well, welcome, John Z. This is our settlement. If you're looking for a place to stay, we're glad to have you as long as you're, you're willing to contribute.
Well, of course I am. What in the world is
happening? we have a lot of weird ways to introduce ourselves to people.
I made the rounds to check on everyone's progress in their personal projects, and I also spent some time organizing our loot and continued working on the bar, adding furniture, lighting, and a stylish checkered floor around the bar area. The additional room on the second floor received its own roof and was converted into a secondary storage area, completed with a checkered floor to match the bar's theme. Bub's room was completed to his satisfaction, and we managed to get everything set up just the way he wanted.
Yay, I got a bed. I can sleep now.
After days of hard work, we gathered for a group meeting to reflect on our journey and discuss the looming threat that we anticipated. Up until now, we have been here for almost a month, and with that would come one of our biggest challenges yet. There was a massive horde in the horizon that would plan to test our efforts in defending the village.
If I'm looking back at the beginning of this entire journey I've been on, I started with nothing but a single RV. I lived out of that for a couple months, and then I moved into this metal compound little structure thing that we're in now, and it was pretty much empty, and then it eventually became a home, and now this place is more than a home. It's a village, it's a sanctuary, and it's a place for good people to live. What we've been doing here today and this past month and few weeks has been nothing but phenomenal. We've done a lot here, and there's still more we can do. You know, there's more people out there we can bring in. Our goal is to take back civilization. But there is one problem. There is a horde coming, and it's gonna be a big one. Some of us might die tomorrow, but no matter what, we keep going. And I would be honored to die by your guys' side. Why don't we blast some copyright music and everybody have some fun for a little bit.
As always, prior to the big challenge ahead, we spent some time to celebrate our progress and boost morale. We danced and enjoyed copyrighted music, celebrating our achievements and the new phase of our community's growth. As the night came to a close, we prepared for the most significant challenge yet, a horde of approximately 1,500 zombies that we knew would hit us in the following morning. We gathered our supplies and made final preparations in the garage, bracing ourselves for the onslaught and readying our defenses for the monumental task ahead. The morning of the largest horde we'd ever faced yet had arrived. This would be the test of everything so far, everything we had built and everyone who had joined us. I had a moment with Fish outside by his farm near the fire, discussing our journey and what laid ahead.
What's going on, man?
We've been here a few months. Well, we've known each other a few months now, ever since the forest, and this is going to be our greatest challenge yet. If something happens to me, I just want to know that this will all go on, and you can eventually rebuild society, and it's been a pleasure helping you in this long journey.
I'm very honored to hear that. Thank you. But I'm gonna tell you this, Fish. You're not f***ing dying, not on my watch. Tomorrow when this horde comes, you're with me, okay? You're by my side.
Alright.
And shortly after conversing with Fish, Bob and I took some time to walk around the village, talking about the challenges we faced and what was coming next.
Oh man, feels so good. It's over.
We got a lot more we can do, more lives we can save.
And the only thing I want to tell you is thank you for inviting me in here, man.
Yeah.
It's not something that I would have expected.
You really impressed me these past 30 days nearly. Really grown into a true survivor. I'm happy to say that this is your home too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
man.
appreciate that. Rest in peace, brothers. We shall win this for y'all both.
But as the hour approached, we geared up for the impending horde. I suited up in my armor and equipped a pristine katana that Banana Man had gifted me the night before. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and everyone assembled in the garage, preparing our weapons, ammo, meds, and food for the fight ahead. At precisely 2 p.m., the distant screams and groans of the horde became audible. The day of terror had begun.
We're gonna stay in groups of 2s and 3s. I'm gonna have Fish Store and Bob with me. We're gonna take the wall to our what is this? I guess this would be our right.
Do we care about if they break down the walls? Should we shoot
No,
for
no,
breaking the walls?
no. If they break down the walls, it's fine. Ideally, just like try to make sure the gates don't break.
Hot, sir, yes, sir.
Where the 3 go?
Alright, get ready. Alright, let's go.
Here it goes. Everybody, it's
Alright,
gate.
yeah, let's go,
Get
let's
your
go.
game face on. All right. Luckily, we only have 1 gate to really hold. Watch out for sprinters.
Fish Store, Bob, and I manned one of the gates, coordinating our efforts to hold back the onslaught. Zombies began to rise and grow from around the walls and swarm all 4 sides.
Oh my god. Okay, there's a lot. On your right, Fish, behind you. They're starting to break in some walls. There's a couple on the far side. They're getting in. Okay, yeah, they're getting in. They're getting in pretty badly now.
And as the horde continued to breach our walls and overwhelm us, I noticed that the south side of the compound was left unprotected. So I decided to make my way over there, armed with my katana, to fight back some of the zombies.
No one's watching the south side right now. No one's watching south side. I'm going in. Oh no. Fish, I need help. Oh my god. I just scratched my foot.
But amidst the chaos, a zombie managed to sneak up on me while I was engaged in melee combat, latching onto me. I tried to escape, but I tripped and injured my foot, causing me to limp, and this would stick with me for the rest of the fight. We fought our way back outside the wall to clear the zombies off the barricades. With our group of the undead overcome, I met up with Banana Man, who had successfully defended his section and was pushing out towards the zombies.
Oh, I see Banana Man's out here. Is the other side clear, Banana?
Alright, come on, we're circling around, we're
Yeah,
circling
we
around.
went all the way around.
Okay. All right, let's work our way up this way then. We're doing it. We're doing fine.
In the end, we regrouped as a village and circled around the outer walls, systematically cleaning off the remaining zombies. And as the sun set, the fight finally subsided. We had survived the largest horde we had faced yet. Our walls and our teamwork had proven crucial to our survival, and in a way, this was a culmination of everything we had done together. Every challenge we had faced, every hurdle we had overcome, we had arrived in what was truly our village. And after some time, the groans of the undead grew quiet. I had finally done everything I wanted to do. From my humble beginnings, starting from nothing but a lonely RV, to building something I could call home, getting lost in the woods and finding a new friend, to finally rebuilding society and a peaceful village. This has been an amazing journey, and I want to thank you all so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, as I would like to hit 100,000 subs before the end of this year, and also join the Discord. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.